All right, all right, all right. You're listening to the We're Talking Football podcast. I'm Weston. With me, as always, is my right-hand man, Lou. Lou, as always, another week in the books. We're here to discuss our Week 14 recap. But given the new 17-game, 18-week NFL format, it means we are actually, at this point in time, heading into the fantasy football playoffs. So, listeners, you're gonna
Playoffs.
playoffs. You're gonna want to pay extra attention to our final segment, how we end all of our shows, where Lou and I are going to actually dole out some fantasy advice on players you may need to consider for your playoff lineups.
Weston, I also got to give you a quick heads up. Don't mean to interrupt, but I will be patting myself on the back on some of the people I've told you about last week and the week priors about who to pick up and what have you. So during that segment, we will do a little stroll down memory lane of what I said.
Yeah, I'm hoping to move through some of these segments a little quicker and leave some
Yep.
extra time there. But bad news for you is I control the mute and unmute button on your end. So if you get a little out of line, I'm definitely muting you. But that being said, I
I'm
do
gonna need
want
one. I'm gonna
to
need one of those buttons.
congratulate.
Hold on, I'm gonna need one of those buttons for my home. Yeah.
You can't mute Grayson, dude. I've already tried on the children. They are unmutable. It doesn't matter. They have these superpowers. I've tried it with Landon. Doesn't work. But I do want to give proper congratulations to those who have secured playoff spots in their fantasy leagues. Maybe even potentially a first round bye, depending upon your league formats. Lou, me personally, this is where I'm going to take my moment to pat myself on the back while I'm controlling the mic. Is I made the playoffs in 3 out of my 4 leagues, but the most disappointing is the league that you and I are in together, a
It's
joint
awkward.
league
This is
where
awkward, people.
this is very awkward, where the playoffs just continue to plague me, and you specifically were a hindrance this week. But I have to be honest with you. I'm very glad you beat me. And for those in our league who are listening to this, I am very disappointed in certain individuals that just decided to play people in their roster because they were already out of it, that weren't even playing this week, where I needed to beat you and needed some help. So if I had beat you and needed that help, I would have been really pissed off about it. Really pissed off about it. I might have protested the league next year or demanded, because I've done this before in other leagues where people get sloppy like that. You're out. Like, you're out. Like, this is competitive. Like, there's dollars on the line. Like, you got to go.
Yeah. Sorry. Didn't mean to do you like that this past week, Weston. A little part of me feels a little sorry for you, but hey, uh, I was. Anytime I win in this league that we were talking about right now is an utter shock to me because it is literally a group of ragtag players. My team is a joke. I don't know how I made it in fourth place in this league so far. It's just amazing ownership, fancy ownership. That's what it comes down to, managing that team. I made some good moves.
Don't apologize. I know that wasn't you did. I know that wasn't a true apology, and don't apologize because fantasy football is business, right? Like, I would never apologize for beating anybody. I wouldn't even care if it was my own wife. If I beat her in fantasy, it is what it is, right? Like, that's just the way that it goes. But your team is coming back to life, dude. There's a little light at the end of
How
the
you gonna
tunnel.
how
You'll
you
be
gonna say that
competitive.
when my best player, Derrick Henry, has been out?
That's all right. Listen, I made it to the playoffs in a league where I lost Derrick Henry as well, and my lineup doesn't look too dissimilar from yours in this particular league. Is what it is. But I regress. We will get into fantasy football in a short while, so let's get back to real football for a moment here.
Mm-hmm.
I am expecting that both of us will be joyous this evening as both of our teams won this past weekend. The Chargers got the expected victory over the G-Men. They did what they were
Mm-hmm.
supposed to do, and we'll talk about that in a second. And the 49ers took home a much-needed victory over the Bengals on the road. But before we dive into our hometown takes, Lou, I thought the NFL had done a pretty good job in managing this COVID situation throughout 2021, right?
What
It didn't,
COVID situation?
yeah, what COVID situation? There are now 7 teams under extreme scrutiny related to COVID. I mean, you got the Washington football team who's got 18 players on their reserve COVID list. You got the Cleveland Browns with 14 players on the reserve COVID list. Atlanta Falcons are on this list. The Rams are on this list, right? Other teams are on this list. And now I'm legitimately concerned because a lot of these teams are in playoff pushes right now. And if this was last year and these numbers were happening, games would be canceled, right?
Yep.
And rescheduled. But now there's an 18-week format. Can't push the Super Bowl back any further than it already is. So what do? And I think the NFL's in real trouble. And let me just give you a scenario as to why. And this is a little off script, but let's say I'm the Philadelphia Eagles this week and I have to play the Washington football team. Yes, I do think the Washington football team, if they have those many cases, like, need to go ahead and field the team, however they need to do it. Bring on your practice squad, whatever it is, like, that's your responsibility. But I also think there's some recklessness in these COVID protocols, right? That, like, you and I aren't privy to and don't understand. But if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles, why the hell do I want to even play the Washington football team, right? Like, what, I'm in a playoff push, as is Washington. But let's say we go play that game, and then on Monday next week, I got 9 people I'm putting on my COVID list. Tells me that I got it from their team breathing all over us while we're playing football. And now I'm in a serious scenario for the following week against a team while I'm making a playoff push, right? So, like, what does the NFL do? Because you're going to have teams that are going to say, I can't play because I can't even field the team. Then you're going to have other teams that say, I don't want to play because this is going to hinder me. And my team has been good for the most part and don't want this to actually affect us moving forward. So what does the NFL do? Can't reschedule these games. Can't at this point in time.
Why can't you wait a couple of days?
Can't.
They did
Like,
it is last year.
No, you can't right now. This is an 18-week schedule. Like, look at the 49ers, right? 49ers play Atlanta. Atlanta is on that intense watch list right now.
Then I think what you need to do is kind of
49ers play on a short week. They play Thursday next week against an AFC leading team. Like, if I'm these coaches, if I'm these general managers, I'm raising red flags about this and being like, if they're voiding protocols, I need to know exactly what's going on before I put my team out there, or the NFL, like, you need to step in and do something about this, because you can't, I can't stress to you enough how impossible it's going to be with an 18-week schedule to reschedule games. You can't. Now you're going to ask people to play on short notice, and you're penalizing a team versus for another team's actions. Like, the Rams are the prime example, dude. Monday, what'd they put? 8 more people on, or Tuesday, what'd they put? 8 more people on the COVID list? Yeah. They played Monday night. You're going to tell me those people weren't playing with COVID? You know what I mean? And, like, you know, they didn't just wake up that morning like, oh, it's here. Like, we know a little bit about this this virus, and that it takes some time to build up in your system. Like, that concerns me and should concern all of these teams that are in the home stretch that have something to play for.
They're talking about, as of like this minute, they're literally talking about doing different type of protocols, enhanced protocols. Maybe you stop seeing, practice. Maybe start seeing more virtual practices, things of that nature. Maybe you can get together once a week, in the facilities. I don't know. Maybe, they adopt, what Major League Baseball did. Like, okay, you cancel games, you go by winning percentage. It's not fair. But this is not a fair time. If this is the biggest thing we're complaining about right now in society, then so be it. I mean, so maybe they do something like that. What would it get them to cancel a game? Because right now they're all like, spearhead. Would it take like some big heavy players like Tom Brady, stuff like that, like to get them to cancel games, like some of like these big quarterbacks? So now you're affecting the integrity of the game. And what I mean by that is like the watch, like the viewership, like, of the game and the product itself, when you pretty much start getting, like, let's say some of the top quarterbacks start getting like, what would it take for them to maybe to cancel or like omit a week, for all teams, and try to get like this thing under control?
I think it's outside of the top players. I think it's going to literally take a team that can say, I can't field a 46-man roster, right? Because I know they have created extra space on the practice squads. But, like, let's say you're the Washington football team. with the practice squad right now, you have a 53-man roster. You used to have 10 people on the practice squad. I think you can have like 13 or 14 now. So 63, let's just call it plus 4, 67. You have 18. You're down to what is that? 49, right? Like, so yes, you can field a roster, but like, let's say there's 2 or 3 more, right? Like, and you can't field a 46-man roster. You're at an extreme disadvantage. Let's not talk about like what the different positions would look like from a depleted perspective. I'm just saying we're at the point now where this is like, it hasn't been this level of concern all year. But right now it's a fucking concern, dude. Like, it's a huge concern.
So two things. If you want to look at who has the advantage right now, who has the advantage are the teams who have the highest vaccination rates, and also the teams that got to hot starts in the beginning of the year. Guess what? I'm talking about your Packers, your Cardinals, because guess what? They're making the playoffs. If you're fighting or vying for like the last playoff hunt spots, you're kind of SOL because you not only have to win your games, pray for help that other teams don't win their games, but also dodge this third bullet too. And last thing I want to say, Weston, is why the hell are you bringing down our vibe when both of our teams won this past weekend?
All right, you're right.
Dude,
You're right.
Fucking Debbie Downer, bro.
I know, dude. It's my middle name. I apologize,
You could
especially
ruin
when
a
it comes
wet
to the
dream.
NFL. Although I should be all more fired up because I told you that like my family and I went to this farm this weekend and I bumped into a dude who was a 49ers fan, was like all decked out in 49ers gear, and he and I were just vibing, right? Like entire time, walk back to the cars, hey, ride over. No, I didn't get his number. I did. I'm a little too old for that. I didn't want that to be too creepy, but
I hope he's listening right now. Maybe
you never know, right? Like I almost thought about putting like one of those announcements on social media. It's like, hey, I was at this place. Can everybody spread this to see if I've met this guy who's following in some community? Because chances are he probably is. So I agree with you, Lou. Let's get out of this.
Yeah,
just things to look at, right? And things that are going to affect when we get into our pick'ems, dude. I'm going to talk about this, right? When we get into fantasy football, I'm going to talk about this. But let's have some fun. Let's get into our hometown takes. As I mentioned, your Chargers had the G-Men this weekend. My 49ers had the Cincinnati Bengals. As I always do, I'll lead with you. Tell me what you saw. I'll tell you what I saw, and let's run from there.
Yeah, I'm actually not going to take too much time to talk about this game for the mere fact that it was boring, and I mean that in the best way possible. When your team wins and the game is boring, it's like such a relief. It's just a great feeling. So for the good, it just was a sound, efficient football from the LA Chargers for all 4 quarters, which you probably couldn't have said that in any game that they played this year. There's no sense of, oh no, here it comes. This is when they're going to start charging type stuff there. So I was extremely content when I was watching the game. Never did I thought it was going to get out of hand. I always had this feeling of, okay, this game is going to script. The Chargers are just better coached. They're better players than
Better
the New York.
team.
Yeah, they're just a better team, and they just literally took business. I'll go over a couple of things that I want to highlight. First and foremost, the running game. It wasn't the production I'm going to highlight here. It's just the sheer amount of attempts and why I think it was important that they need to start trying to get back to this type of football. They had 37 rushes for 4.1 yards per carry. Their previous high throughout the year was 34, but normally they average about 20 to 25 rushes a game. That's simply not enough. I'm not trying to say take the ball out of Justin Herbert's hand, but weeks prior, there's been rumblings on social media that the Chargers are not pushing the ball down the field and what have you. That's a very conservative offense, a lot of short passes. I kind of think they need this rushing attack to bring up the safety so they can push down the ball down the field. So this is what the Kansas City Chiefs has been enabled to do. They can't establish a run, so there's no one coming up. There's not a seventh or a guy in the box to provide extra support, and everyone's falling back. So that's why I kind of think the Chargers need to be more physical and establish the run better. And they did it with all hands on board, by the way, with this rushing attack. Eckler had 12 carries for 67 yards and a touchdown. Justin Jackson, 9 carries, 35 yards. Joshua Kelly, 10 carries, 33 yards. nothing eye-opening here. It was just like I said, to keep the defense honest. And this was a huge proponent, I think, why they're starting to get better when it comes to pushing the ball down the field. It's a winning formula. And like I said, I've been rooting and clamoring over how great the Bengals offense has been because it's multidimensional. I think they have to kind of take something in that line where they would be a multidimensional offense to get the safeties to cheat up. So that being said, because what's the old adage, Weston? What they say about what travels best in cold weather in the playoffs? A running game and a defense.
Yep.
Right? It's corny as hell, but guess what? It really does. So if the Chargers are fortunate enough to make the playoffs, they're going to need to show teams that they can, because they don't have the defense right now. They're getting better, but they need to, start getting this rushing attack, all hands on deck, and getting other contributors outside Eckler. That being said, we talked about Joshua Kelly, Justin Jackson. Those weren't the usual suspects. They had to rely on other people because of Keenan Allen being out and what have you. But other guys stepped up too. Jalen Guyton had 3 catches, 87 yards, and a touchdown. Palmer, who was my fantasy football, by the way, pick last week, saying if Keenan Allen was out, Palmer would be the guy that would take over the Keenan Allen position. He had 5 receptions, 66 yards, and a touchdown. Joe Gaziano, defensive tackle, had 4 tackles and a tackle for a loss. Nick Neiman, rookie middle linebacker, he had a late game interception. These are names you're not recognizing because guess what? They're just supplemental players. They're not your starters, but they started to show up this past weekend. And Justin Jones is an interesting character because when he's on the field, this defense is so much better. There's so much more stout against the run. He provides a little more juice in the pass rush. But he had 5 tackles, a tackle for a loss, a sack, and a fumble recovery. It's interesting what he brings to this defense. Just a little more physicality, something they really don't have when it comes to the LA Chargers defense. So that's on the good side. That's pretty much it. It's just a regular boring game that the Chargers always had in hand.
All right. Give me your bad then, because
bad.
I have a handful of things I'm say, but I just want you to keep going.
Bad. I'm like nitpicking here, Weston, because I watched the game twice. Penalties, I guess. They had 6 penalties, but it was for 39 yards, so it wasn't a tremendous amount of yardage there. And perhaps for me, the worst of this past weekend was the jersey combination they rolled out with. I don't hate the Royal Blues, but of all their jerseys are fantastic. But of all their jerseys, this is probably my least favorite. So the rolling out the Royal Blues was part of my bad segment here.
Dude, there's nothing better than those powder blues. I don't you got to wear those every opportunity.
I even like the navy too. The navy on navy pants. I like that.
They do have clean colors. It is what it is, and that is definitely nitpicking, right? When you're talking about jersey pant combination in the game. But you're spot on, right? Like my first comment here is really hard to judge a team in any fashion based on winning a game they should have won in the fashion that they should have won it. Lesser competition. They're just a better football team. They're more soundly coached. They have more talent. It just is what it is. Now, if this was a loss,
real quick, Weston, how many times have we seen throughout, especially in the AFC, how an AFC superpower have lost to inferior teams? The Bills to the Jaguars. There's so many. I can't think of many more off the top of my head, but the Titans, the Jets,
to the Jets,
and the Texans,
and the Texans. Yeah.
Yes. So.
But that's the NFL, right? Like any given Sunday, there's a reason
none
why
of these games are gimmies. Yeah.
No. Listen, both teams get paid to play. Both teams operate within the same salary cap. Both teams lace it up, right? That's why they play the game, and it's not a Madden simulation. If this game was a loss, we'd be singing an entirely different tune, right? I think that's the first thing that we could say. But just everything went the way it was supposed to for the Bolts. Good team went in and beat a bad team. We talk about some things that I saw.
Go ahead.
What have I been saying about your quarterback since Since
See,
you and I started this thing, what have I been saying about your
I
quarterback?
didn't want to bring him in because I feel like
I'm bringing him in.
whenever they win, it's always about him. So I wanted to shine the light on other people because yeah, you're right. He does carry the team. A second-year quarterback who's learning a new offense for the second year in a row is carrying a team. So when he goes, they go. And yes, I get it, but man, he made some great throws.
Yeah, so I'm not even sitting here and actually trying to say that like they won this game because of Justin Herbert, right? Like they won this game because they were a better team and they played sound football in all facets of the game. But I am going to pound the table for Herbert because this man made some big boy throws, dude. That one to Guyton,
the 66-yard air yard.
oh my
when he got hit, dude.
Oh
There's a photo superimposed that like the middle finger. I want to say is it Ojolari?
It was Ojolari. I think that was getting to him.
It was like he might have been like almost touching the football or barely touching the football. He did. And you look at they were compared to some throws like Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, whatever, and also Patrick Mahomes. They had giddy up in their throw. I mean, like they stepped up and like launched it. There was no giddy up in his throw. He sprinted to the right and literally
planted and threw.
Yeah. So,
bro,
I would love
his arm talent is ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Do you remember back in the day, the All Pro, like the Pro Bowl, they had like the quarterback
skills competitions? Oh yeah,
I would
dude.
put Herbert, Mahomes, Allen, Rodgers, and Stafford. I want to know who throws the ball the furthest.
After what I just saw in that game with everything you just described, right?
I still think it's Allen.
Yeah, Josh Allen has a cannon, dude. You saw the way he was winging that ball in like 15-mile-an-hour winds. Like that's the different skill set. But Herbert would be right there. I mean, dude, like you said, no crow hop. Just sprint out to the right, planted his foot, man in his face, and just aired that hoe out. And it was a dime, right? Like it wasn't necessarily just like, hey, I got this guy standing all alone who's just waiting for the ball.
No, he split the safeties, yeah.
And hit him in stride, and that thing was ridiculous.
What's crazy too, they were talking about the analysts analyzing that play. Giants did nothing wrong on defense.
No.
It's just that the safeties weren't expecting
a 66-yard ball in the air that wasn't a Hail Mary at the end of a half or a game. Like
exactly, that's exactly what it was. Like when he released it, Guyton was at the 30. So like they weren't expecting it to get to the 2 like when he caught it.
So that brings me to my second point, right? The biggest positive for me in this was seeing the ball without Keenan Allen in the game, at least in the air, being equally distributed, right? You mentioned Guyton 3 catches, Palmer 5 catches, Williams with 6 catches, right? So to me, that's important because it was Herbert trusting the offense, trusting the play call, putting the ball where it needed to be on a design play, right? Not like got to force feed my superstar, got to force feed my superstar.
Is it force feeding a superstar, or is it more out of comfort? Like, you know,
I think every once in a while, I when I say force feed a superstar, I don't mean that like the superstars on the sideline, Keenan Allen being like, give me the rock, right? Because a good, competent quarterback is going to be like, dude, get open and I'll get you the rock, right? Like, and I think Justin Herbert is that a good, competent quarterback, right? So but in a game without your superstar, really easy to be dependent upon Mike Williams the entire game, right?
Yeah,
or something, and just force feed that rock. So to me, this bodes really, really well. You talk about his second NFL offense, his whatever, third or fourth or fifth offense in a row that he's had to learn year over year stemming from college. But at the right time, the right moment, trusting the play call, trusting your reads, putting the ball where it's supposed to be. And that was part of that Guyton throw, right? Like, yeah, he bought time. He got outside, but the read was this dude's at the 30-yard line right now. I'm just going to air this out. And I know and trust that my guy's going to get underneath it. Like that is going to bode so well for this offense. Trust me. Just trust me on that, right? Like that is just confidence breeding for Justin Herbert. And this at the right time of the season. The only other thing that I would say about this game, dude, is like 271 passing yards, 152 rushing yards, 7 of 13 on third downs, 34 minutes time of possession. Those things usually mean victory. And that's exactly what it was. Just like a sound, clean win.
You said that in a boring fashion because
Yep.
that's what it was. It was just a ho hum coming in. It's like a 9 to 5. You punch in, do your job, punch out, leave.
My concern is yes, the running game was well distributed, but I also think it had a lot to do with game flow, leads, and like forcing it. I do think there needs to be more of a threat to run consistently from this team because, like you said, you just saw what this man's arm talent is, right? You suck an eighth man into that box, he's throwing darts all over the field. Darts
Yeah,
all over
what?
the field.
Yeah,
I'm going to talk about it in a minute. And you shared with me some content earlier on some strategies to take away from big arm talented quarterbacks and remove that deep threat and do those things like defense coordinators get paid too, man. They know what they're doing. They're not dumb individuals and they can do it with whatever body they put out there. It's scheme. And I'm going to talk about that in a second when I talk about the 49ers. So I do think there needs to be more of an established threat of the run and more intentional, like the good passing teams do this all the time, right? They're just going to say, like, I don't care if I'm averaging 2.5 yards a carry. I need you to believe that on first and second down, I'm going to run the ball. Because at some point in the third quarter, I'm not going to run the ball on first and second down. But I've been doing that for 2.5 quarters. So I sucked your eighth man in on that first down play, and boom, 65 yards to the house, right? Like there just needs to be more of a threat.
it's just maybe this is more ego or maybe this is more philosophy, but like don't know how they're gonna continue doing this because I feel like it's an interesting balancing act, like a seesaw. How can we if we're gonna run the ball? It means we're taking and we're not gonna be as effective running the ball as we are as Justin Herbert gonna be throwing the ball. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, are we
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like just trying to see like, all right, if we're gonna take the ball out of Justin Herbert's hand, then how's that going to impact the offense? It's a seesaw battle that they need to figure it out. But I liked watching what I did in a number of runs that some when you go into an offensive game, when you go into a game, offensive coordinators and coaches basically say there's some coaches that say, listen, get me you got to get me to 35 runs this game. I don't care
Yeah.
when they happen, and they chart them, right?
No,
So
yeah.
I think there has to be some mentality, to that. You got to, every week you got to get me to this X number of rushes. I don't care what's the outcome is, but we need that so we can set up the long game.
It's the threat of the run, right? Like Kyle Shanahan, Bill Belichick, Sean McVay, like some of these guys. I mean, why am I drawing a blank on my guy LaFleur? Like these guys, like the run sets up what they do, right? Like, and it's not necessarily just the deep ball; it's the play action pass,
Mm-hmm.
dude. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Where you suck in a linebacker who's used to flying to the ball, and your drag route underneath, your tight end off a chip block. Like all of a sudden these guys are wide open. They got nothing but green in front of them to run for 25, 30, 40-yard gains, like chunk plays. We talked about that chunk plays, right? So you have to get defenses to respect your running game. Otherwise, they just sit in a shell. They sit in nickel all day long. They sit in dime all day long. And they can take that pass away from you real fast. A heavy run football team is the hardest to defend because you know what they're going to do, but they're still going to do it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that the only reason why you would put Ryan Tannehill in your top 10 quarterbacks going into the season is because they had the best running game in football, right? Like, if they didn't have that running game, is anybody talking about Ryan Tannehill right now? Like, it's just
He's
different.
still leading. Yeah, I mean, look what he's doing. Though. He's leading that team to.
Yeah, but like the last 2 weeks, I mean, they're still putting up almost 200 yards rushing between who they got in the backfield, right? So, like, again, it goes back to everything they do is predicated on the
Yep.
running game, and
Yep.
that's important. All right, you're
All right.
good.
I'm more than good.
All right, I know you're all smiles, dude. Those relaxing wins are the best wins, bro. They really are. I don't know
Exactly.
what that's like. Even in the 2019 push for the 49ers, they used to call them the cardiac kids because every game went down to the goddamn wire. Like, look at that week 17 game against, literally, you're talking about centimeters that determined we were the 1 seed versus the 5 seed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, things that just happened.
Your game started off relaxing.
But it didn't, and let me tell you why, right? Like, it did, like, on the scoreboard, but as, like, I definitely coined myself as an educated fan that's like watching my team. I'm not naive that like sometimes the other team's just not on their game and things don't swing right, and let me talk about it. So after last week's loss to the Seahawks, the 49ers definitely needed this win. Washington lost. This win slides us back into the 6th seed. We hold tiebreakers over the Vikings and Eagles right now. We get a chance to play the Falcons. Everything's huge, right? Just a big W. But I'm going to start with the bad. What we were just talking about. So based on the events in this game, this win should have been much easier than it actually was. I mean, you had Cincy muff 2 punts, giving us favorable field position. And both those amounted to 10 points, right? You want to get points off of turnovers, but should have been 14 points. 1 extra score, 1 extra field goal puts this game out of reach to begin with, right? So you're not worrying about this like down the stretch. Dude, it was 20-6 with like 8 minutes left in the 4th quarter of this game, and it still went into overtime. It was 17-6 at halftime, and we had no offensive production, like none, like literally none. Like 10 of those 17 points were off of muffed punts, right? Like this is what I'm talking about. Like we weren't moving the ball. The offense did literally nothing until the final drive in regulation and the first drive in overtime. Like I just mentioned, 1 additional score would have put this game out of reach. We were 5 of 15 on 3rd downs. That's 33% is not a winning recipe. We gave up 5 sacks, but I do put some of those sacks on my constant criticism of Jimmy. He just struggles to get out of the pocket. I know that's not his game, right? Like he's not Lamar Jackson. He's certainly not Josh Allen, but he's not even like Justin Herbert or Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers, who are just elusive individuals. He struggles to step up in the pocket. He tends to hold the ball too long because he doesn't want to make that errant throw in a bad spot. Like he tries to be more of a game manager. And that showed itself in this game, definitely through the first 3 quarters. If I'm talking about more negative, I'm gonna be Jason Aponte here and attack the kickers and say they're not people too at this point. You have a kicker, Robbie Gould, who literally held out, got paid a ridiculous amount of money for a kicker, and he missed the game-winning field goal. I'm not going to call it a chip shot. But I'm going to call that a very makeable, have to make field goal to win the game in regulation. Right? So those were the negatives that stuck out to me throughout this game.
I want to get back to your Jimmy G. I know every week it's pretty much been almost like the Jimmy G show. Us talking about him. He is the most maddening and frustrating.
Oh my God, dude!
Quarterback I think to possibly watch, because there's times where he's like, okay, captain check down, or when he tries to push the ball down the field, you're like, what is he throwing to? Who is he throwing to? Or other times where he's just throwing it ridiculously high, thinking he has Kevin Durant, as a wide receiver.
Hospital balls every day, all day.
And then I was completely flabbergasted. Like he just turned it on in overtime, and it was like the cleanest drive, most efficient drive, great throws. He's the most manning quarterback to watch on a week in and week out basis. I do feel for you.
It is frustrating, and I'm gonna give him some praise here in a minute, right? Because like it wasn't all horror, but
he played two and a half good quarters.
But this to your point, right? Like there are moments where you're like, bro, you can do this. Like you can do everything that the naysayers say you can't do. You do them consistently is what it really boils down to. I have one final point on my bad section, then I'm getting into my good. These are 2 things that piss me off more than you can ever imagine, and it actually has nothing to do with the teams playing. It has everything to do. It has everything to do with the broadcasters. CBS showed a graphic of Zach Taylor being, I don't know, something like 0-23 when trailing going into the 4th quarter.
Don't be superstitious on me right now.
No, dude. And then Robbie Gould being 21 of 21 on field goals to tie or win games at the end of regulation. These things are legitimately the ultimate jinxes, dude. They like
stop talking. Go get your tinfoil hat and put it on now. Finish the segment.
Bro, I am a conspiracy theorist to the day that I die. The world is all gloom and doom. But it's just annoying, right? Like, and I understand you got to fill the air and you got to find these stats and like, like that's part of these people's jobs too. But come on, you can't sit there and, bro, Thursday night, you have the Kansas City Chiefs who are balling right now, right? Let's say it gets down to it and you guys are up 2 points and Harrison Butker's about to kick a 50-yard field goal, 50-plus yard field goal. And they flash that statistic of like Harrison Butker is 30 of 30 and blah, 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 blah. Bro, you're feeling like he's going to miss that kick, right? Like they do it. They do it to the best.
I'm not going to front.
They do it to the best of the best,
yeah,
bro.
But then,
you know what I mean?
Justin when they do the Justin Tucker, he says F you.
No, but this year he's missed some things, right? They're like, he's like 90 of 90 on extra points and he's missed like 3 extra points this year. It's like, it's just maddening to me because it's just like the ultimate. Now, Zach Taylor is 0-24, right? Because they technically did lose that game in those scenarios. But Robbie Gould's now 21-22, right? It's just like those things that it's like as a fan, I just like we're all superstitious, dude. All fans are superstitious. What jersey did I wear? What socks did I wear? What was my routine that day? We're all that. And then you do everything within your control, and then the fucking broadcasters throw something up like that. And you're like, God damn it, it was all for nothing. It was all for nothing. I should have never have done any of this. Is what it is. All right, let's get into the good. So win against a potential playoff team on the road who just came off a disappointing loss to your team. You thought they'd be a little bit big win. Huge win, no matter how you cut it, right? Like, I'm not trying to be negative. This win was more difficult than it needed to be. Maybe not even deserving of the win, but the win is the win, right? Like it is what it is, and they did what they were supposed to do. Biggest standout to me, defense. Total defense. They forced those 2 special team turnovers. Dude, they held Cincy to 86 total yards rushing, 3.3 yards per carry, and specifically Joe Mixon to 18 carries for 58 yards and no touchdowns after he scored a touchdown in 9 straight games.
Yeah.
That's a win. The other thing, 4-13 on third downs. They had 5 sacks. They held Cincy to being 1 of 5 in the red zone in terms of scoring possessions. Like, these are huge. But here's what won't actually show up on the stat sheet that excites me the most. The Bengals offense was legitimately non-existent for 3.5 quarters. And the 49ers were able to do this with 0 cornerback depth. When you look at the roster of the Cincinnati, I'm going to ask you a question. When you look at the roster of the Cincinnati Bengals, what does it feel like their strength is?
Their skill positions. They're out their boundary receivers.
Yep.
Both receivers, Boyd too.
Yep. They were non-existent, dude, for 3.5 quarters. Like non-existent. And what's even crazier about this is DeMeco Ryans just had this team sit back with 2 deep safeties. The deep safeties hovered the boundaries to keep those deep threats away. Again, dude, we have no cornerback depth right now. Like none. Like Verrett gone week 1. Our next best quarterback, Emmanuel Mosley. Dude, even the longest tenured 49er who seems to just continuously come back, Dante Johnson, I'm very sorry to say this. His mother had passed away the morning of the game from a heart attack, but they found out the night before that she had suffered the heart attack, was in the hospital. So unfortunately he wasn't able to play. So you got Josh Norman out there. That only thing that he does well is force fumbles, does nothing else well for this team. And a rookie, Ambry Thomas, who's a press man corner, who we got playing off. For life of me, I don't know why this wasn't Demo Lenore in the first place. But in any case, nobody out there. But you got Tart and Ward just covering the boundary, hovering the field, and DeMeco Ryans schemed that up and did great. But unfortunately, there were times where, in certain situations, you had to man up. You had to do certain things. You left a cornerback out there, and they were able to capitalize on that. The one Jamar Chase touchdown, busted play, Burrow buys time. He gets open against a rookie safety. It is what it is. The other one was just a flat out dynamite route against a rookie QB. But I'm going to praise the defense because the offense did nothing honestly for 3.5 quarters themselves as well. The reason in this game, if I'm going to call out names, I'm going with Bosa. Played like a man on fire. Bro, he was everywhere. He had 2 more sacks to his total. He should have had 3. One was wiped out by the most ridiculous hands to the face penalty I've ever seen on a corner, like within like the 3 yards from the line of scrimmage. Like you never see this called. But crazy. But Bosa's now tied for third in the league in sacks and first in the NFL in tackles for a loss coming off that torn ACL. But he just felt like he was playing with urgency. Like it almost was like, while I'm saying the defense played really well collectively, it felt like he was the only one that was like, nah, guys, like we have to win this game to stay alive and to be relevant. And he was playing that way. Loved what I saw from that effort. So I'll regress on defense. Let me get to offense. Welcome back,
George. Real quick.
Yeah. Go.
Let's stay on the defensive side, because we talked about last week Herbert versus Burrow, and everyone was saying Burrow. What was your feedback? As when you're watching the ball from a defensive mind, what was your feedback from Burrow? Good, bad, ugly. What was your thought process when watching him? Did you get nervous when like, oh, here he comes, or just let me get some feedback from there?
Yeah. So I admittedly got nervous when it felt like he was catching rhythm, right? Like a good, competent quarterback catching rhythm is a really scary proposition in the NFL, right? Like it's momentum. It's the big M. Like it just carries you. What I could say watching him through the first 3.5 quarters is I sensed a lot of hesitancy, reluctancy to maybe pull the trigger on a couple balls that I feel like other quarterbacks in the NFL would just let it rip and take their chances and let wide receivers make some plays. So it felt like in the first few quarters, he was waiting for like the perfect opportunity and wasn't going out there to make opportunity. So that was, if I was watching from an outside perspective, I would say it would be a little off-putting in comparison to his draft class or to other younger quarterbacks in the league. But when you're watching this dude when he's on his game, I mean, he's a player, dude. He's a player. Like you can't take that away from him. That spiral is tight. That ball is a dime.
Great placement.
Placement.
Throws are great.
Super accurate.
Fantastic anticipation.
Yeah, like he's a good quarterback. Like he's a really, really good quarterback. He doesn't have the arm strength as some of the other top tier quarterbacks in the NFL, is what my eyes tell me. But he can make every NFL throw, and it's not like difficult for him. But like, I don't see him doing what Herbert did and putting 66 air yards underneath on a dime. Like that's not his specialty. I think he's most effective 15 to 25 yards down the field, good trajectory, good velocity, tight spiral, right location where only his receiver can make the ball. So I did walk away from that game impressed with him as a talent. But for whatever reason, whether it was his injured pinky going into the game, maybe it was the offensive scheme early, to me, I just sensed a lot of hesitancy from him. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'm thankful, right? Because he waited 3.5 quarters to get into his stride and ultimately could have cost them the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's my 2 cents. Okay. But when push comes to shove, he's a good quarterback, and he's going to be a good quarterback in this league for a long time, so long as he can stay healthy. But I am still saying right now where they are in their careers, Justin Herbert is the quarterback that I would take.
Okay. So get into your offense now.
All right. Get into my offense. Welcome back, Mr. George Kittle. Just 2 weeks in a row, dude, of just straight baller performance. And I think this one was even better than last week against Seattle. Seattle was more statistically sexy. This week had some tough, gritty catches, what you're used to seeing from number 85. And the one that stands out the most was that catch that put him in position with less than 20 seconds to win the game on that fourth quarter field goal that Robbie Gould missed. I mean, bro, like, what tight end in the league actually makes that catch? Just tell me. I'll sit here and listen. Travis Kelce doesn't make that catch. He doesn't do those things.
Also, bad defense from the Bengals. Not once they feel like they bracketed or doubled him or anything.
They didn't.
Like, what were they thinking? Like,
I have no idea. I have no idea, man. I have no idea.
The whole game, literally, just let him run through. Like, he's being a problem for you. Think after 7 or 8 catches, like, okay, we probably have to bracket him.
I don't understand. I don't understand that mentality. Maybe it's just the threat of Debo running out there, right? Like,
Yeah,
you know
but
what?
Debo
This is
wasn't killing you as a receiver, though.
no, but this is the other criticism. You know what? This is what I'm going to go back to. One bad thing here
Okay.
is Debo. Like, did we forget that Debo is a wide receiver and
Yeah,
that he
what's going
was?
on with that?
Yeah, I don't understand this. Too much in the running game right now for me, or not a. You know what? Not too much in the running game. Not enough in the passing game. Like he plays like, dude, you get him 10, 15 yards in the field and he catches the ball in space. Who's tackling him?
Yeah.
Who's bringing him down? He's going to outrun people. Like too much is predicated on blocking schematics and making sure everything works. And he's going to the house. And like, look, 6 rushing touchdowns, more than like any other wide receiver, like whatever. But like, this man needs to get 6 or 7 targets in the passing game at bare minimum. But here's what I will say. And this is another thing about Jimmy. For all the good stuff that Jimmy did, I still, when I go back and watch the film multiple times, we talked about how people like Shanahan, McVay, they draw up the home run every time, right? Like they draw up a home run every time. You still have Debo running over the middle of the field, open, 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 but it's still a check down, right? Like it's still to somebody. So let me get off this because we're spending way too much time in our teams. And this is where I talk about like, Debo's just continue to audition for like RB1 and finds the end zone again. Like he probably wouldn't even be surprised if he's our starting running back next year alongside Elijah Mitchell and doesn't even play wide receiver anymore. Ayuk had a great game, ton of targets. He's trending up and to the right. That play at the end of the game, that wasn't even like Shanahan even admitted that wasn't even designed to score a touchdown, right? Like that was designed to get them inside the 5-yard line and try to pound the ball in from there to win the game. And he just made a pretty spectacular play. Like this is what I love about the Debo Ayuk Kittle combination is they're all special and elite when the ball's in their hands. They make different things happen when they're running down the field. As much criticism as I lay on Jimmy, and I lay it on heavy, I'm the first to admit it, but I still root for number 10. He's my quarterback. Like, I don't want him to suck. I want him to do well because I want to win football games. Bro, he was money on the final 2 possessions. Money. Lights out on the final 2 possessions. I wish
that's when I was watching. I'm like, where was this?
Yeah.
Earlier.
I wish he played every game this way, the entire game, quarters 1 through 4, because it was crazy. Made throws outside the numbers, a big one to Jawan Jennings, where he's just normally efficient in between the hashes or in between the numbers. Like it just didn't make sense.
I felt like the tempo was different too in overtime. I felt like it was a quicker pace tempo too. I'm not sure if that would be something that would help him out, try to get more into rhythm. But yeah, it just was he was different quarterback in overtime.
Totally. Like nails, money, whatever
Yeah.
term it is you want to use, like he was it. So I'll end with this. 4 games left in the season. I think we need to go 3-1 to control our playoff hopes.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Real quick. I'm a San Francisco 49ers fan. After this past weekend, I feel blank. What do you feel?
I feel we we have the opportunity to control our own destiny, and I feel good about it.
Okay. Very long-winded answer.
As you'll always get from me. But that's it, right? Like, but you know what they can't do, Lou, is they can't go lay a dud at home against Atlanta right now. Can't do that.
No.
Got to win that game. Got to win that football game.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on. Let's get into our freaking out scenario because clearly we're both freaking out about W's. I'm probably even a little bit more excited than you are just because yours wasn't as like mind-blowing of a game in the sense of just giving me 7 cardiac arrests in the middle of it. So give me a team or a fan base or whatever it is that is freaking out right now.
I'm going to start off with a positive. How about them Cowboys? The Dallas Cowboys. We mentioned last show that this is a huge stretch for the Dallas Cowboys, and they've been mediocre late. They went 3-3 in the last 6 games prior to Sunday's matchup with the Washington football team. Now here comes Washington this past Sunday. Winners are 4 in a row, and the Cowboys straight up manhandled them. They really did. And what I think is more impressive, the way they won, is that their offense was faltering. It wasn't the high flying, high scoring offense that we've been accustomed to early on in the year. It's their defense that held them that helped them win the game. Which is when was the last time you were able to say something like that? What, the late '90s, mid to late '90s? it's been their defensive has
The
always been.
Leon Lett, Ken Norton Jr., Deion Sanders,
Yeah,
Darren Woodson days,
their defense, as of late, have always been softer than a Twinkie filling. So the Cowboys, they had 5 sacks, caused 4 turnovers, and held Washington to 3 of 14 on third down. And they finally have a defense that can help bail out their offense if they don't put up, 35 points a game. So shout out to the Cowboys, an impressive win on the road in Washington.
Let's stay here. Let's stay here with the Cowboys. We don't give the Cowboys enough love on this show. I know that,
For
right?
you, it must be painful.
No, they just listened to the first 45 minutes about us talking about the Chargers and the 49ers and COVID protocol and, all of that. So I had the Cowboys here too in a positive manner. So I want to stay on this. What's different for me right now for these Cowboys, and just piggybacking off of what you're talking about, is they actually have a 3-game lead in their division heading into week 15 of the season. Feels like the division's wrapped up, man. It just feels like it.
They play all the last like 3 or 4 games are all division games.
They're better than every team in their division, as they should be, in my opinion. But I feel like they actually have an opportunity here to cruise on home with essentially a guaranteed home playoff game. I don't think they're going to surpass the 3 teams that precede them in terms of like rankings in the playoffs. They have a shot, but I don't know how likely it is. If I'm the Cowboys, I'm just focusing on getting that home playoff game, right? Like that's the most important.
I'm going to say this. They get the 3rd seed.
Okay. I like them for the 4 seed, which is not a loss, Cowboy fans, right?
Cardinals are reeling, man. Injuries are piling up for the Cardinals.
I know.
Yo, we are
bro, out for the regular season.
Yeah, we are and also Connor too. He sprained his ankle, and he's been pretty injury prone in his whole career.
Good, give me Chase Edmonds. I need it for fantasy.
Yo, we are the kiss of death. Last week, every time we bring up a team that does well, they drop dead the following week. This past week, the last show we were singing the Cardinals' praises, and look what happened. A couple of weeks prior, the Titans, and guess what? Look what happened, Derrick Henry. I'm hopefully, the Patriots are winning it all.
Throw that hex on it right now. I like that. So Cowboy fans, we're sorry because we're about to sing your praises, but season might tank right here. But Lou, every time we say this, right, that the Cowboys should, and anytime everybody talks about it, not just us, like the Cowboys should easily win their division, and it's never easy, right? Like it always comes down to the final week of the season. It just feels a little bit different right now. And I actually don't think Dak is 100% healthy right now. Like I don't. And I know, I mean, he's slumping, if you ask me, right, compared to the way he was playing pre-injury. But what's nice is they actually have this buffer to just go ahead and figure that out, whatever it is, right? Like you got to rest them a week. If you want to just tote Elliott and Pollard, like you can do that.
Pollard's hurt with that foot injury.
Whoever it is you want to throw in there, right? Like they're not 6 and 7 scraping for the final seed right now, right? Like they're sitting in an envious spot. But you mentioned it. The defense has made tremendous improvements. And this rookie, Parsons, dude, legitimately at this point, after what I saw this last weekend, could be in discussions for defensive player of the year, not just defensive rookie of the year. You put him anywhere on this field, and he's just a difference maker. Like, I'm going to talk about this in a moment because I'm going to call him out in one of our additional segments. But, like, my eyes in watching that game were like, wow, this guy is all – oh, the statistics don't actually say it outside of, like, the sexy statistics like sacks and stuff like that.
Nah, he was
not total tackles.
Everyone.
He was everywhere. He was literally all over the field. I just think there is a ton to be excited about right now down in Big D. That's it.
See look at my shocked face. Not shocked.
Not shocked.
I called this out in our draft. Parsons was one of my guy. You gotta literally go back and listen to like. He's just not an off the ball linebacker. I said you have to find ways to implement him in numerous different ways. And kudos to the Dan Quinn and the Dallas defense because when they drafted him, I'm like, shit. Like they're gonna ruin this guy. but they found a way to incorporate his ability to be a pass rusher and a linebacker. So, uh, which is something shocking to think they would be able to, but good for them.
Yeah. No, I
Hmm.
like I said, if I was a Cowboys fan, I'd be pretty jazzed right now and feel really comfortable that I'm hosting a home playoff game, which is always something to be excited about. And if it's against lesser competition, maybe I see a divisional game,
Yeah,
outside of a wild card game.
yeah.
All right, you got another team at all or
I
negative
do.
Nancy?
I do. Negative Nancy, Baltimore Ravens. This was last week. Again, we talked about the Ravens playing the Cleveland Browns, and this was another game we spoke about where if the Browns defeat the Ravens, this AFC North is going to get a little murky. And guess what just happened? Not only did the Browns defeat the Ravens, but Lamar got hurt too. The one guy they could afford not to lose,
Yeah.
who is the soul of that team, the life of that team, just got hurt. Now I know it's not season-ending injury or whatever, but it's his ankle. One of the best things that make Lamar Jackson so fantastic is his escapability, his ability to extend the play, his ability to almost be a running back that can throw pretty damn well too. So this is troublesome. I'm finally starting to think that all their injuries that started this offseason and during the season that have been piling up. I think they hit a breaking point, and I feel like they're not going to overcome it. They're literally trying to limp to the playoffs. Now they probably will still make the playoffs, but how scared are you going to be with this team because they have a boatload of injuries on the offensive line, running back position, secondary. They're good against the run, so they can stop the run. But if you got banged up Lamar, you think that ankle is going to get better as the year goes on, as it gets colder too?
Not
Are
the
you
way he
kidding me?
plays football.
No, yeah, it's not. Yeah, exactly. It's not like Aaron Rodgers where he has a banged up toe. I mean, it will hurt him. It's just pain management, but that's not what his game is predicated on.
Yep.
Lamar Jackson, his game is predicated on that I can beat you with my arm and feet, and that's why about 5-6 weeks ago I called him the MVP, which probably not so much now because of they've been slumping.
Lou put the hex on you
Dude,
because that's what we do.
what was it? Was it like from Bronxdale, Johnny Mushmouth or something like that? Like
Yeah. No, what Frankie Coffee Cakes, no good. I
Frankie
need him.
Coffee
I
Cakes.
need him
Yeah,
out of here. Oh no, Mush was that's why they
yeah,
call him Mush. Yeah,
yeah.
the other guy. Great
Yeah,
movie, by the
put
way.
me in the
Such a great.
bathroom. Put me in the bathroom.
But Sonny, so and so's already in the bathroom.
So
um,
yeah, so I'm concerned. I'm not sure if I'm concerned. I'm just if I'm a Ravens fan, I'm just thinking this is not our year, and it's okay because it's how it's happened. Fluke injuries.
Yeah, it's tough right now, right? Like especially at the back end of the year, right? If it was early in the year, maybe find ways to overcome it. And I agree, right? Like, and I've been saying it for a couple of weeks now. Baltimore just doesn't look right anyway. Like even with Lamar out there, just things weren't. Just think the time's come, right? They found a way to survive a lot of those like big time injuries to
Yep.
start the season, and like all things NFL, it catches up with you.
Mm-hmm.
So my freaking out negative is Bills Mafia. You covered this last week. I'm
I
just going to
did.
continue it this week. 2 straight. I know this last loss was against the defending Super Bowl champs, but this team just does not look right, dude. Their best running back is their quarterback. That's a problem. They went from literally having if you recall, what I don't even know if it was 6-7 weeks ago, we were like, number 1 seed in the AFC, you're gonna
Like
lock
who
up
they
the
losing to?
AFC.
Like,
Yes, yeah,
the hardest game was this game, this Bucks game.
yeah, and dude, they just went from having that division locked up to potentially being on the outside looking in with
Crazy,
one more loss, which is just
crazy.
wild. They are presently the 7th seed in the AFC playoff seeding. Um, Not good that your best player, your best running back, and your best quarterback, in desperation to try to catch up this game, was forced to run the ball for over 100 yards and banged up his ankle pretty badly. Don't even know. I mean, I do expect that he will play, but you just talked about with Lamar, right? Like part of Josh Allen's game is the threat to run. And when he runs, he's a bruiser when he runs. Um, I don't know what you get from him when he just sits in the pocket all day. I don't know when that threat's not there to nurse that ankle. But to me, all of this with no running game, Stephon Diggs has been just MIA all year when all said and done. When you look at the total body of work compared to what he did last year, I mean, shit. Josh Allen's favorite target right now is Dawson Knox. Like that's who's finding the end zone. This all just does not bode well as you're getting into the final stretch of the season. And honestly, at this point, I think the chances are higher that Buffalo misses the playoffs than that they make the playoffs.
I'm gonna talk the Bills Mafia off that ledge so they don't have to jump through that table. They started off really slow against the Buccaneers, all right? And let's not forget, this is the Buccaneers, one of the best teams in the NFL. But they could have won that game at the end. I personally think when Josh Allen was running to the left-hand side, I think he got in for a touchdown, but they had to settle for the game-tying field goal. I'm not sure why they didn't challenge. I'm not sure if they could have challenged it because it was under 2 minutes or what have you, but this team still fights and it's still scrappy and still well coached. I just think they played a better team this past weekend.
Yeah, but the slow starts, man. Like it
can't
be
you.
routine. You know, they'll kill you every time against a Tom Brady, and like the road just doesn't get any easier, right? And the Josh Allen injury, whether he plays or not, is a scary thing. But what I do like about Buffalo is the makeup of the team mimics the makeup of their fan base and their city. They're gritty, they're fighters, they're nasty, and I don't expect that to go away. I expect them to fight tooth and nail. Dude, that race in the AFC right now is tough. It's
bonkers.
Really, really tough, man. Like, what's crazy is you have three teams in the AFC that are eliminated, and you only actually have one in the NFC that is mathematically eliminated. But that competition that we're talking about, right? Those 5 or 7 teams that are competing for those last two, essentially playoffs spots in the AFC. They carry winning records.
Yep.
In the NFC, they carry losing records. So it's just a difference in competition. You know what I mean? But it's the same scenario. Like the race is just so tight. Like, dude, this playoffs is coming down to tiebreakers, not win-loss records. Like it's gonna come to tiebreakers.
It's gonna be crazy.
It's wild. All right. So we're running mad long tonight, and I love it because it means we're having a lot of fun. And I don't hope you don't mind, but I love these conversations.
Yeah,
I love where we live because we hear those trains in the background. I hear it come by your house, and I know that it's coming to my house anytime. So let's get into some offensive, defensive players of the week. I know you run a tighter ship. I'm a little bit loose. I'll be tight tonight just for the interest of time because I want to leave ample time to get into some of our other segments. So do you want to start offensive?
I'll start, and I don't know if you had this individual because I feel like once again people forget about Thursday night games. But how about Dalvin Cook versus the Pittsburgh Steelers?
My God, dude!
27 carries, 205 yards, 7.6 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. With a bum shoulder, by the way,
a separated shoulder that said could be like 4 weeks, and there he was,
and it wasn't
a week and a half later.
No, it wasn't against a team like the Jets or anything.
Steelers defense.
Yeah, they're decent. Yeah.
Listen, I had Dalvin Cook number 1 too. So I'll go to my number 2. So I have George Kittle, 13 for 150. This is the second week in a row he's been on my list, but I don't think you can argue it. As a tight end, 13 for 151 in a TD. And it's like I said earlier, it's not just the stat line, it's the type of catches that he makes. He's just gritty. He's hard to bring down, super physical, but then yet he'll go out there and make this wide receiver-esque, super athletic catch. And you're like, this dude's 6'5", like 245 pounds. Like, he shouldn't be able to do that, especially when you know what I know about how I see him block defensive ends and outside linebackers on a regular basis. Like, no individual should be this gifted. And he's gifted. Like, is he Kyle Pitts athletic? Like, no. But when you combine everything that he does, he's a different player, man. And I hate saying this, especially because he plays on my team, when healthy, like, someone please try to argue with me that he's not the best tight end in football, because he's the most complete. And I can even put it out there statistically in terms of most games with over X number of yards, most gains with over X number of catches. But he's in company that Travis Kelce name doesn't even appear close to. Like Shannon Sharp's name doesn't appear close to. Like you're getting into Kellen Winslow Sr. And then some fluke people that have made it there along the way. Like he's different. He's different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I got another offensive player, and I was torn between Josh Allen and another quarterback because Josh Allen had a great game too.
Great game.
But I'm going to tell you why I picked this other quarterback instead. Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I have to.
He was 29 out of 37, 341 yards, and this is why I picked him. A whopping 11.8 yards per attempt. Why that's so huge? When you have 8 to 9 yards per attempt is a winning recipe. He bested that by 2 to 3 yards extra, meaning he was airing at the ball. He had 4 touchdowns, and all on that little fractured little toe that went wee all the way home too. So Aaron Rodgers, that 11.8 yards per attempt. Woo!
Yeah, even that 141.1 rating was like next level, dude. And he's different. Like we know that. So you've taken some of my guys. I too had Josh Allen, who had an awesome
start
game.
Defense next.
I'm just gonna throw a name and a stat line out there. Rashad Penny, 16 from 137 and 2 TDs. Like, a name that you haven't heard at all this year and just came out and balled in an opportune moment. So I'll give, although it pains me to give any Seahawk love, I'll give Rashad Penny some love. But let me start defense then.
Yes, you can go defense.
Lou, when do I break out the ball?
We got team, ladies and gentlemen, we got team defense coming up right now. Award here.
We sure do. I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs defense in this particular game against the Las Vegas Raiders. 4 sacks, 11 QB hits, 4 fumble recoveries, a pick, and a defensive touchdown that actually occurred on the first carry of scrimmage from Josh Jacobs after I spent an entire fantasy episode saying how Josh Jacobs was going to go off this week. So I remember this very well when it happened. But I got to be honest with you, Lou, like there wasn't too many standout individuals on the defensive side of the ball this week. This was a little tougher to scrounge. Like there's going to be some obvious names. You're going to name one of them. But so that's why I led with a team, and for me, it was the Kansas City Chiefs defense.
Because I'm a gentleman, I will leave that individual for you to name him. I'm probably going to pick someone that you didn't have on your list because it's a fun stat line. Randy Gregory, defensive end, Dallas Cowboys, 1 tackle, 1 sack, 1 interception, and 1 forced fumble. He basically had everything you have in that stat sheet. I thought that was a pretty fun stat line right there. So Randy Gregory. I want to leave some meat on the bone for you there, Weston, because I know who you're going with.
No, I'm not going with who you think I'm going with. So I'm gonna.
Whoever you're saying right now, I'm going to say that's who I thought you were going with. By the way, but go ahead.
All right, so I keep my ball where I keep my ball because I'm going with a second team defensive performance for the week, and I knew it. I knew it. I'm going with the Tennessee Titans defense. Dude, they allowed. I know who they played. I get all of that, but this is still the NFL. They allowed 8 yards rushing, 8 for the entire game, a total of 229 yards. They sacked the quarterback 3 times. They had 9 passes defensed, 6 quarterback hits, 4 picks, and the most important stat of all is they gave up 0 points, which in this day in NFL is really hard to do because even the worst teams will find a way to at least kick a field goal to say that they didn't get goose-egged in a game. And the Tennessee Titans goose-egged a division rival in the Jacksonville Jaguars.
All right. Shout out to Tennessee. I got one more. Aaron Donald. Listen, I don't get that.
I know. He's on my list too, but I'm gonna talk about it.
When you talk to me about people who have 2 sacks, no, I'm sorry, I don't care about 2 sack people. I don't get out of bed for anything less than 3 sacks, and that kind of has There's no innuendo there, people. By the way, I'm not trying to be perverted or anything like that. So Aaron Donald had 5 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss, and a pass defense. He basically, manhandled that offensive line of the Arizona Cardinals.
He did. And I have him on my list too. And I don't think that's who you think I was going to take. I think you would think I was going to go Bosa, 2-sack game. I feel like your 2-sack innuendo was a jab at me on who you thought I was really going to go with. But here's my problem with Donald's performance is you said you don't get out of bed for anything less than 3 sacks. That 3rd sack should have never have happened. That play was so rushed on the final play of the game. There was so much discombobulation. The offensive line barely moved on that play, and Donald took advantage of it. And you know what? The sack still counts. It is what it is. I had him on my list because of that 3rd sack, but I'm going to take a jab and say that,
you know what? His first sack should account for
asterisks 2 on that 3rd sack.
His first sack should account for 2. He basically picked up a 300-pound guy and hugged Kyler Murray with
impressive.
that. So
it was impressive. It was pretty impressive. I'll give you that. All right. So let's proceed. What stands out to you this coming week? Whether it's a game, a matchup. I have a few. I think there's some pretty interesting matchups this week.
I don't want to be a homer, so I'll go with Colts versus New England. These two teams are built, I feel like, almost alike.
Yeah.
There's sturdy defense, albeit New England's is better, efficient quarterback play, and a powerful rushing attack. If New England wants a first-round bye, they need to win this game to hold up the Chiefs. If the Colts are just trying to stay in that playoff hunt. So it just sucks for Indy, though, how they start off so slow. They had a brutal schedule, some injuries in the beginning of the year. They're literally becoming that team that no AFC team wants to see them in the playoffs because of their rushing attack and their front seven to stop the rush, too. They're a little weak in the back end, but albeit no one wants to see the Colts in the playoffs, and New England's going to try to do their best to do that.
Yeah, I had this game as number 2 on my list, and only I agree, right? Like these teams seem to be like mirror images of each other. They both want to run the football, they both want to play defense, and you just talked about everything that I was going to say as well in terms of like the importance of the game, what New England's playing for, what Indianapolis is playing for. I think it's going to be a good game, and I think Bill Belichick's going to do everything in his power to make Carson Wentz beat him and not it be Jonathan Taylor. And can they do that? And I honestly think they will. But we'll talk about that in short order here. So you didn't want to be a homer. I'll take the low hanging fruit. I have the Chiefs Chargers tomorrow night. I think this is a huge game. I'm less optimistic about the outcome given Rashawn Slater's not playing.
Yeah, there's Chris Jones, though.
Very true. But I'm also hearing about like Eckler, Derwin, Asante are all game time decisions. Want to see how they work out. And those things are clear. Yeah. Totally give them whatever they need to get them out on the field. But listen, it's a Thursday night game. It's the only game in town. On paper, it's a tremendous matchup. Kansas City's going to look for revenge after they lost to LA earlier in the year. But it's just a big division game. Chargers won 2 straight. Chiefs have been on a tear. And this is just an important game, not just for the division, but for playoff seeding in the AFC. Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lou, here, but if LA wins this game, they jump to number 1 in the AFC West due to tiebreaker, do they not?
Yeah, that's correct.
There's a lot on the line here. So I think this tomorrow night's a really important game.
It just sucks that it's a Thursday night game because I hate Thursday night games.
Short weeks suck,
they're always sloppy.
Yep.
Not a fan. But yeah, that was my other game. I'm not going to repeat the sentiment you just said. So I obviously, as a LA fan, I want the Chargers to win because I love chaos, Weston. So by them winning would bring on the chaos.
Just
I
like a wrinkle and everything.
Exactly. So I hope LA wins, but we'll have to wait and see in our pick'ems.
Yep.
I don't have another one.
The only other one I'll throw a caveat in there is like Packers Ravens, and to me this is just like, hey, does Lamar play, and does like the Baltimore offense get back on track, or does Green Bay just continue to roll and pick up a I don't want to call it a cheap victory, but a cheap victory.
I'm with you. If Lamar was healthy and they were rolling, but
totally different.
It lost its luster.
All right, so let's get into
the pick'ems.
Yep. So last week You were 10-4.
Ooh.
I was 9-5.
Ooh, I picked up a game because there's only a couple of weeks left.
Yeah. So that puts you on the season 76, 50-1.
It's pretty damn good.
It is pretty good. I'm at 71, 55-1, which is not
Okay.
bad either.
That's
It
not
just
bad.
doesn't look as good as 76, 50
Weston,
and 1.
worst case scenario, you're gonna finish second, bro. So silver looks good on you.
Hold on, motherfucker. Let me get my notebook out here for a second.
You taking notes?
No, I gotta write down our picks, bro.
No,
This is how I'm doing week over
I'm
week.
messing.
What are we in? Week 15. Dude, let me
Week
tell
15.
you, like, what an eye-opening process this is, where I can just literally circle and cross out based on like what I write versus I can't believe I waited like 6 weeks to do this. All right. Thursday night. Chiefs Bolts.
Going Chiefs. The loss of Slater, I think, is a bigger, more impactful loss than Chris Jones because of the replacement of Slater. It's hard to beat divisional rival twice, especially the caliber of the Kansas City Chiefs. But even though I think LA is going to lose tomorrow, I think this could possibly be best for them because they're not full strength, not having Slater out there and possibly some other players. They get to the playoffs and those players are healthy to play the Chiefs in like one of the rounds. It could be interesting to see what happens then if they're a more full strength Chargers team when they play the Chiefs in the playoffs, if they have that chance. So it could be better in the long run.
I got Chiefs too. I just think the Rashawn Slater thing is,
Huge.
and I hate to chalk it up to like one player making a difference, but that's going to be too much
It's
to
not
overcome.
it's not just one player. I was talking to a friend of ours who's a Chiefs fan, and I was talking about the game, and he was basically saying we're not going to get any pressure on the left hand side. We're going to have to try to get some pressure on the right hand side. So like now that
Pressure's coming from everywhere.
Exactly. So like that was his thought process. Like we're not going to touch you on the left. So, but now that doesn't hold any water.
No. Yeah. So I'm Chiefs too.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I want to pick the Chargers here. I just for everything that you just said, and I think the Rashawn Slater's too much. And I think if any of those combination of three players, if it's Derwin who's out, who's Asante's out, or even Eckler that's out, it's just another chink in the armor, and it's not going to bode well. So tough to overcome. All right, Saturday, 2 Saturday games this week. Las Vegas Raiders at the Cleveland Browns. Keep in mind, Cleveland Browns have 14 players on the reserve COVID list right now.
Yeah, I think 2 of their cheerleaders too. I'm probably gonna say Las Vegas Raiders there.
Yeah, so I'm saying the Raiders too, just because I think that if it's Mayfield and a handful of others, it's a lot, man. There's just a lot. When I have to imagine that these locker rooms are scrambling, you're piecing together game plans on last minute based
distraction.
on who's available. Yeah, it's and it just feels like the Raiders aren't dealing with this right now. So if that's the case, I think it's an opportunity to come in and beat a good team.
Hey, isn't it crazy going into a game we're talking about the Raiders of the least distracted team of both teams?
You saw Arnett got signed.
Really? By who?
The Dolphins.
Jesus.
Oh.
Okay.
I guess gun permits are allowed in Miami as well. All right. Saturday matchup. Pats, Colts. Who you got?
Gotta go New England. Both have good rushing attack.
In Indy.
Gotta go New England. I just think their defense is better. And Mac Jones has been playing better when it comes to throwing it. I don't want to hear about that Buffalo game. That was calculated.
Yeah.
So
50-mile-an-hour winds.
You can throw on the Colts, and I'm going to say New England.
I'm going to say Indy.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
Me too. I just feel like New England's been on this tear. What is it? 7 straight, 8 straight, whatever it is at this point in time. Like something's got to give. This feels like the team that could potentially give against. I still think no matter what, Indy's going to try to establish a run.
This is like your roulette theory. Like
exactly, right? It's got to land on this number eventually, right? Like just keep putting on 10. Something will take place. I also need to catch up on a game for you. And I'm just intuition here. I just feel like I think Indy's got a shot, right?
Okay.
So
of course they have more than a shot, but
I'm going Indy. All right, so let's get into the Sunday matchups. Carolina at Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Yeah, I got the Bills here too. You got Arizona on the road against Detroit.
Arizona.
Me as well.
You sure you don't want to go with your Detroit
No,
Lions?
I listen. I accomplished what I need to accomplish. We're moving on.
That was the quickest on and off bandwagon fan I've ever
No,
seen. No, I'm joking. I'm
dude,
joking.
those were legitimate arguments. And Rich White, if you are listening, you called it out, but sound logic, right? Like, yo, it's Thanksgiving. They got to do it, blah, blah, blah. Like, it just has to. And they almost won that game. Like, literally with 3 seconds left, they lost that game, right? Like, so I wasn't far off. But, all right. Jets, Jets
Dolphins.
at Dolphins.
Dolphins.
All right. So you got the Fins. I am taking the Fins as well. Dallas at G-Men.
I'll take Dallas to beat the long neck of Glennon.
Oh my god! Wouldn't it be just like typical New York Giant football to win this game though?
Yeah.
But I have the Cowboys as well here. Washington football team at the Philadelphia Eagles.
This one's tough because Jalen Hurts is apparently still banged up, even off a bye. And so is Tyler Heineke. I'm probably going to say the Eagles because you have both Heineke and McLaurin hurt. And so you got some injuries on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm probably going to say the Eagles coming off a bye.
I'm saying Eagles too. Saying a little bit more confidently than you, regardless of the quarterback situation, because I think
If Minshew plays,
yeah, yeah, like he still played well 2 weeks ago, but I think 18 players on COVID right now for Washington is just like, dude, the only healthy defensive lineman that they have that has not on the COVID reserve list is Deron Payne, right? Like that's a strength supposed to be a strength of this team, and now that is an immediate week.
Yeah.
Look for Philadelphia to try to run the football as much as they possibly. All right, I got Eagles too. So Titans at Steelers.
You can go first on this one. Let me think. Unless you're thinking, because this one's close. I just feel like the Steelers are due for a win, and the Titans are due
Yeah,
for a
so
loss.
I am going steel curtain on this one because it's a home game for the Steelers, and I feel like
it would be so they have extra time too because they played on Thursday night.
I'm gonna go. They're due for a dub. I'm going Steelers.
It has no. It's just would be such a Steelers.
It's
thing
just
to
the
do.
laws of the NFL every once in a while.
Yeah,
you're going Steelers too.
Yeah.
Although I kind of secretly, I hope this game is a bloodbath because we have Tennessee on a short week on Thursday the following week. Just hope like it's a massacre. All right, the Super Bowl: Houston Texans versus the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I'm gonna say it's
in
a tie.
Jacksonville. In Jacksonville.
Yeah. I'm gonna say Houston. That team is messed up. We just came out with that team.
Myers kicking the ex-kicker in the leg. Like what? I don't.
Yeah. I'm because the quarterback of Houston played pretty well. You're over 300 passing yards this past week.
Davis Mills? Mills?
Yeah.
I was going Texans too, just because I think there's just too much turmoil in Jacksonville. The only thing that gives me a little pause is like they did just get shut out. You know, like and that's like a sour taste. But I don't think they have. I don't think they have any leadership. I don't think they have leadership. No, I don't think they have any leadership. I don't believe in it. Like I don't think they have any leadership on the field and like players and what have you. All right. Here's an interesting game right now. More interesting based on the last few weeks, but the Bengals at the Broncos.
Ooh, Bengals are really reeling. And the Broncos are
playing well, running the football real well at least.
Give me the Broncos. Their secondary matches up well against what the Bengals try to do.
Yeah, I got the Broncos too because I just think their defense is
they just match up well.
Yeah, superior to what San Francisco just put out on the field, and I think the blueprint's out there on how to slow some things down. And I just feel like Denver is going to be able to run the ball, especially if Trey Hendrickson is out. If he continues to be out and this is a long-term thing, like that's going to be a little bit of an issue. So I like the Broncos too. Falcons at 49ers.
Niners. The Falcons are not a good team.
So
Oh, come
I
on.
w-
There's
no,
no way you're picking the Falcons.
I was thinking about it just because like every
Just
time I pick against the 49ers, they win. But I also know that Atlanta is on one of those like 7 teams that they have to look out for from like a COVID perspective. So that can throw some unexpected wrinkles over the next few days. I have to pick the 49ers here. Home game, like they have to win this football game. Have to. All right. Seahawks at Rams.
Rams. Hold on. Oh, that was quick. I forgot.
That was
the Rams,
way too quick, dude.
the
The West is weird, bro. It's really weird out here.
But they usually beat the Seahawks, the Rams. Am I right when I think of that? I feel like they usually beat the Seahawks.
In LA. In LA.
Man, because the Rams are one of the teams that got hit with COVID too.
Yep. I'm gonna go Seahawks.
Yeah,
I'm
Seahawks. That's exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, Seahawks.
I just feel like the Seahawks do this, right? Like when you count them out, like they're just gonna go on this run.
They've been playing a little better lately.
I think the Rams are feeling real good about themselves, beating Arizona.
Yep.
I'm just going Seahawks.
Yeah,
Packers at Ravens.
Packers.
Yeah,
close.
I think this is gonna be. I think this is Pack all day. 2 Saints at Buccaneers. That's a Sunday night game.
Go Bucks.
I'm Bucks too, unfortunately. Not enough weeks here for us to be different and me pull apart from you. Vikings at the Bears Monday night. The Bears.
I'm gonna give you a bone here. I'm gonna do it for you. I'll take the Bears.
Fuck.
Really, you want the?
I was thinking about it, but no.
Kirk. Okay,
I'll take the Vikings. Kirk Cousins sucks on Monday night.
not only that, he's actually been pretty damn bad against the Bears too in Chicago.
Right. I'm just going to take the Vikings because you're willing to throw out a different opinion here. So
yeah,
I'm just going to go polar opposite of you and hope that I get a chance to at least get. So where were we different?
I think 2 games only.
I have Indy, you have Pats, you got Bears, I got Vikings. That's it. All right, so we'll see.
Yeah.
See how good or poorly we do. Which brings us to what we've all been waiting for, Lou. Let's get into our fantasy football advice.
Real quick, who was the player? There was a player I alluded to on our last show that I did not share because it was before the waiver pickup. Text you the next day. Who was that player? Do you remember?
Yes. Osborne, the wide receiver from Minnesota. Yes.
Got him in our league. And all he did was put up 15 points
against me. Yeah, asshole. Thanks. Appreciate it.
But I also said, I think last week Palmer too. So I was pretty dead on with some of my picks.
You sure were. So let's go ahead. Since you're feeling so confident in yourself right now, we're in the playoffs here for fantasy football. If you have a competent commissioner, you should be in week 1 of your playoffs. I'm really furious, Lou, and my one team that I finished first in the regular season and outscored like every team by like 300 plus points for the season. Like my team stacked. They do a first round bye. I hate first round buys. I'm like projected to do like 180 this week.
Yeah.
And watch, they'll go off, and then I'll put up 80 next week in like my first round of the playoffs. I hate the first round bye more than anything. What makes it even more scary is I'm on a 9-game win streak, so like I'm just poised to lose. And this is the league that I'm going for a 3-peat in. This is the league that sponsored one of our shows, the Wise Guys Fantasy Football League that we showed the belt for during one of our shows. So I'll let you go first. Just keep in mind, Browns, Rams, Washington football team, all ailing right now from a player perspective. So who you got? Who's number 1 on your mind?
So we talked about Lamar being banged up, Josh Allen being banged up. Huge. Those are huge players that if they can't go this weekend, you're going to need to put someone in there. So, and if you need a quarterback, I'm going to say do like Lloyd Christmas this week and pick him up, Taysom Hill. Taysom, he doesn't look good when he plays, but damn,
No.
he puts up points. The last 2 weeks, he's averaged 25 points because he gets the rushing yards, he gets just enough passing yards, and he gets those. He accumulates touchdowns. Doesn't look good, but you don't have to look good in fantasy.
Tough matchup though, man, because what he does really well is he rushes the football and gets into the
Yeah,
end zone, and he's got the #1 rush defense that he's facing
but
this
they got
week.
Kamara too. I
Yeah.
still think I get it, but I still think he's going to get his.
I'll save my question for you on Sunday when we go on with Jason, and it's
Okay.
like, because I have Taysom in a league, but I'm torn between playing him and my quarterback that has essentially got me here. But I agree. I do think that Taysom is an attractive play because even in the game that he threw 4 interceptions, he still almost gave 30 fantasy points because
Yep.
he still threw 2 touchdowns, ran for 2 touchdowns. Like, you know what I mean? Like, ran for 100 yards, like, still does a lot of cool things. So I have one that's a little outside the box, but I've been saying his name week after week after week. This might be the 4th week in a row that I've been saying this person's name, and it's AJ Dillon. He's been out touching and outplaying Aaron Jones, specifically from a running perspective. I know conventional wisdom and what you're going to say, Lou, is like Baltimore's been tough against the run as of late. And you're actually right. They're #1 overall against the run over the last 4 weeks of the NFL schedule. You're not wrong. But Baltimore is going to be so focused on how to stop Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, which to me always says that's going to open up lanes for the running back. It's December, and running the ball is imperative. From a running perspective, AJ Dillon is outperforming Aaron Jones, and it's actually not even as close as you think it would be. If you are in a tight running back bind and this man is on your bench, you are playing him this week.
Pick him up. All right, I
Pick
have
him up.
news came out earlier today about Deandre Hopkins being shelved for this game and props the rest of the season. Go get AJ Green. He had
He
over
played
100
pretty
yards.
well last week.
Yeah, he had over 100 yards last week, and he's been serviceable, and that's with Hopkins being in and out of the lineup. Not only that, that's Kyler Murray being in and out of the lineup. So AJ Green has been serviceable. Now they're also probably down James Conner. So who else is really going to get this ball? You got Ertz, AJ Green. Sneaky play be their rookie, was it Moore?
Rondale Moore, yep.
Yeah, I picture them doing maybe a little Debo type action there too.
Kid's talent.
Yeah. So, but AJ Green,
all right,
against Detroit.
Yep. I'm staying in the running back world, and I'm going with Donta Foreman. I know for the last few weeks it's been like teetering on this, like, is it Foreman? Is it Hilliard? Like, what's the deal? But Foreman's averaging over 90 yards from scrimmage the last 2 games. Feels like he's just getting the nod over Hilliard. Finally found the end zone last week. He just looks and feels like the guy right now. And we talked about this earlier in the show when I was joking in jest about Tannehill and talking about having to establish the run. Tennessee against the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're going to have to establish the run. They're just going to have to. So I expect at least 15 carries from Foreman this weekend.
Okay, I got one more too.
Yeah, I got a third too.
Okay, cool. In one of my leagues, I literally stream tight ends. I don't have a tight end really. And this week I'm streaming Ricky Seals-Jones for the mere fact the Eagles are awful against tight ends. They literally give up the most receptions and touchdowns. So whenever you see the Eagles on the schedule, pick up that tight end on the opposing team.
Ricky Seals-Jones. He's been in the league for a while, man. It's got one of the best football names too. My third guy here. I know I've been spending some time in running back land, but I'm tapping Brandon Ayuk right now. I know some people have spent some high draft collateral on this individual. I probably got frustrated halfway through the season, but for the last 4 weeks, he's averaging over 8+ targets. He's top 60+ yards. I think like 5 out of the last 7 weeks. And to me, this is really about, so the trajectory is up and to the right, and this is about a matchup as well. So the Falcons, over the last month of football, have allowed the most targets and receptions to wide receivers in the entire NFL. And I think you see that trend continue in a must-win game for the 49ers.
I think you're stressing about this Atlanta game way too much.
It's must win, dude. It's must win. Because
They're all
let me tell you why it's
must
must win. No, but it's must win
you
because
should feel confident though.
I do feel I feel good. I don't feel confident. It's must win because you win this game. When you think about the people that are beneath you, and the most obvious names are going to be the Minnesota Vikings, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Atlanta Falcons based on record. So you now hold the head-to-head tiebreaker over 3 teams that aren't in your division, where that washes out. Like, that's a big deal. You know, that makes like a loss to Tennessee not as consequential. It even makes a loss at the end of the season to LA not as consequential.
Yep.
All right. Lou, that wraps us up. Again, recapping week 14 of the NFL season as we head into week 15. Had a lot of fun tonight. This might be one of our longest shows ever, so I'm probably going to have to go apologize to my wife by the time I get to bed and wake her up as I'm crawling in. But Lou, as I always rely on you, which was really weird when we were doing Jason's fantasy show over the weekend when I had to like remember what some of our handles are. Because I'm like, I never have to do this. Tell everybody where they can find us, how they can find us.
You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at WTF Pod NFL.
And on YouTube at We're Talking Football. Wherever you find us, please hit the like. Please hit the subscribe. We appreciate all of y'all listening, and hope you enjoy week 15 of the NFL season. Lou, we'll wrap soon.
Adios.